in 2 decades. Joining me now live to discuss is the Assistant Treasurer, Michael Sukkar. Assistant Treasurer, thank you for joining us this morning. What are the factors causing this savings boom?
Well, Danica, there's no doubt that during the pandemic, Australian households bunkered down. There was obviously a range of discretionary areas of spending that Australians were unable to spend on, including travel, particularly. But these numbers that we see today are really a sign of just how important the economic support that the Morrison government put in place through JobKeeper, Home Builder, the Cash Flow Boost and others to keep people in jobs, to keep businesses going. That then enabled Australians to save more, as you said at the outset, $48 billion in offset accounts, more than $170 billion sitting in other accounts. So that's $220 billion of economic firepower that's there. It provides a great foundation to continue to support our economic recovery. And from a household perspective, it's quite self-evident that it means more discretionary spending because you're paying less on your mortgage than you would otherwise with that money sitting in your offset account. So, extraordinarily difficult times for so many Australians. We've come through it. We've come through it together, and this data shows that Australian households have come through it in a really resilient fashion and in a way that puts a great foundation to our economic recovery.
How long can it last for, though, particularly in the shadow of Omicron and the shortages we're seeing now? People can't go to work, they're close contacts. Surely it can't last.
Well, Danica, look, we've had now, Omicron over the last 6 weeks has seen the evolution of this pandemic. And I suppose we've all become accustomed over the last 2 years to seeing different challenges arise, and Australia, every time one of those challenges has been put before us, we have overcome it, and I'm confident we'll do so again with Omicron. But your question, I think, is right in the sense that, the only thing that will hold back that economic firepower, that more than $220 billion or $48 billion sitting in people's offset accounts, will be confidence, and that's why our plan for economic growth, our plan to continue the economic recovery, unemployment at 4.6%, which is a 13-year low, it will be so important in ultimately harnessing that economic firepower into 2022. Lots of challenges ahead, but Australians should feel proud that we've overcome all of them thus far, and really our economy is performing as well, if not better, than virtually every other comparable economy in the world.
You walk into a supermarket at the moment and the shelves are bare. There are significant supply chain shortages. What more can be done from the government to fix this?
Well, we're working extraordinarily closely with not only our large retailers, but all of the supply and logistics operators, and it's a huge priority for the government. We've, through the National Coordination Mechanism, been doing so really throughout the entire pandemic. Some important work that's been led through National Cabinet by the Prime Minister, I think, has welcomed and seen the Queensland and New South Wales governments coming forward with some changes to the isolation requirements for workers in that supply and logistics area that's sensible, that's proportionate, but that just means that fewer workers will be having to isolate if they're not symptomatic or do not have a household contact with COVID. That will mean that those resources are not being taken away in isolation, and we think that will have a positive benefit. But, as Assistant Treasurer, Housing Minister, the Treasurer, the Prime Minister and many others are on a daily basis working very closely with all of our large supermarket chains, everyone in the distribution network, to try and ensure that we keep up with some of the spikes in demand that we're seeing. And we've all seen through the pandemic that spikes in demand for certain goods occur whenever there's any level of uncertainty. And obviously Omicron over the last 6 weeks has led to some of that. But we've come through it before. We're confident that there's a resilience in our supply chains that will see us come through it again. But it's an ongoing challenge, Danica, that we are working with industry on a daily basis.
All right, just finally, we are running out of time, but I just want to ask you quickly about the Novak Djokovic saga. Is the federal government to blame for all this?
No, Danica. In the end, we have to dispassionately apply the rules. Whether you're an international tennis player or whether you're an ordinary person trying to enter the country, Australian Border Force applies the rules to everybody. We do so dispassionately. I happen to be a big fan of Novak Djokovic. I think he's an outstanding ornament to tennis. But in the end, the rules are the rules, and one rule must apply to everybody. That's the position of the government, and I don't think Australians would be surprised to see the Morrison government being appropriately strict on the protection of our borders. We've always been that way, we always will be, and it's one rule for all. That is the guiding principle here.
Assistant Treasurer Michael Sukkar, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. See you later.